with the Board of Library Trustees. This is our December meeting, and it's hard to believe that the year has gone by. Let's begin with the roll call.
Okay, Mr. Eisbart,
Present.
Mr. Castleman,
Present.
Mr. Moss,
Present.
Mr. Seifert,
Here.
Mr. Williams,
Present.
Ms. Shamanoff, present, Ms. Tucker.
Present.
All are present.
Thank you. All trustees are present, therefore we have a quorum. Can I have a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed by nay. All right, let's get to the approval of the minutes. If there are no objections, I'd like to group A, B, C, and D, or not D, A, B, and C. Minutes of the regular session, November 16th, 2023, of the executive session, November 16th, 2023, and the minutes of approval of claims, December 8th, 2023. May I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? All those then in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Let's move to Dave's time.
All right. Thank you, Ben. In your packet, of course, are your financial reports. Just starting off with a few of the lines. This time of year is when they start to go a little above benchmark. There's 4 that occurred in the last month. These are all going to be dealt with in a little bit on the transfer appropriation, but the ones that went are computer maintenance. That's really due to the cost with the new ILS and Polaris charges. Again, it's not an exorbitant amount, but enough that it pushed it. The other is the building maintenance. That's purely the Aboit roof repair. Again, we had that funded through insurance, but it has to be appropriated, so we'll need to do that. Travel, we did a little more travel this year. Both these next 2 lines, that and program presenters, just continued evidence of how much more active the library is. We were able to send more people to the PLA and ALA and those type of conferences. And then the presentations, or the presenters, we've had a lot more going on this year. So those were the 4 that went in. Again, they will be tackled or funded through the budget transfer appropriation. Other than that, there's some items in your packet. The usual one is the budget transfer one. This is the one we do at the end of the year. We move money around. Again, it's based on the official budget, not the internal budget. So anything that would be needing funding from that standpoint, we move it in there. And I'll go over more details when we go on to that one. The other one coming up is the treasurer's bond. This is one that's still required by the state. It's $100,000. Most of our coverage is through the directors and officers $10 million policy. This is the minimum $100,000, but by law we're still required to have it. So those are the main things this time. I know we've got a large agenda on some of these items, so I'll stop talking on these items, but I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Questions, folks? Paul?
The compensation and benefits, roughly $1.5 million higher than year-to-date last year. Has that typically, I mean, that percentage typically been the trend for like past 5 years? I can't
No, the
honestly
reason
recall.
the reason that's higher is, matter of fact, a check that Ben just signed, the hour endowment sends every year, and this year it's $742,000 that came off of that from the foundation to the library that will go as a reduction on those salaries. So that's why that looks strange at this time of year, but that will go and reduce that line.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions on the financial report? If not, can we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Any further discussion or any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by aye.
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 Opposed by nay. Let's move then to the approval of the claims.
Yes.
Anything that hits the radar?
Well, if I could find them, I'd let you know. Let's see. Here we are. I was picking up December 8th one. Not really. The main items this time are, again, the utilities. And we're starting to see the end of the year, the book purchases are increasing. This is the time of year when a lot of our subscriptions come due and all. So those are the main expenses at this point.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept the claims as distributed?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. They'll be coming around, David?
Yeah, I'll bring this and the transfers over around also at the same time.
Okay, so speaking of transfer, let's talk about transfer.
Right. In your packet, I've got the resolution 2023-03. Again, as I mentioned in my report, that is a resolution to move money within the budget lines. We're not increasing appropriation, we're just moving money. And the main one on this, you can see from the back up, is again what I mentioned, the building maintenance line going up. We're moving $750,000 in there. That is strictly from the Avoid roofing repair items. The other items that are needing some additional funding are, again, computer maintenance, what I mentioned on for the Polaris conversion, things like that. Legal expenses, again, these are the kind of things that tie back to those lines that I point out on a monthly basis. Legal expense was tied to, of course, the work on the facility master plan and the efforts to move forward with resolutions there. Some of the other lines, gas and utilities, those are just tied to usage. The vehicle maintenance, as I know, just costs going up. So in the back is the detail of your increases and decreases. Group insurance was the main one that we were able to move money from. And as I mentioned last year around this time, because we had such good track history with our self-insurance fund, it was recommended by our auditors that we don't need to move as much money into that internal service fund. And so we were able to move, and adjust our monthly payments and lower those into that group insurance fund. So that created a surplus in that line. So that's why that one is the one that's being picked up on, so.
Okay, question. Motion to approve the resolution to transfer appropriations?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Let's move to approve your bond.
Yep, and then this one, I handed out beforehand because it wasn't available during the mailing of the packet. That's a copy of the treasurer's bond, again, as I mentioned. It's $100,000, it's the bare minimum that we can do. It's still required by the state that we have one, so that's what this is, giving the example of. We will get the originals, they'll be signed and notarized, and then they'll be posted on the Gateway portal for, public viewing. Not much else to say on that one, it's just a requirement by the state still.
Okay, well, let's see if we have a motion to approve.
A motion to approve.
Thank you, Sharon. And a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Now we get into the staffing tables.
I'm going to bring around both the checks, and the transfer appropriation is one that requires all your signatures, so I'll bring that also. Thank you.
Okay, Lorraine?
Hi, good afternoon. So you have the proposed 2024 staffing table in your packet. That includes the COLA increases that were approved last month. I wanted to note the position changes that are in that packet as well. Some of them were mentioned last month, but officially to approve this month. Changing the shelvers in our genealogy department to genealogy assistants, moving them from A1 to A2 pay grade. Security officers, adjusting them from A3 to A4 pay grade. Adjusting the safety and security manager from M2 to M3, M3 being the system-wide critical roles. Adding the social services coordinator, the social worker, and a library at home supervisor to the staffing table. Changing the event techs and subsequently the senior event technician up one pay grade. I have in there a job description for the senior genealogy librarians. Right now, senior librarians in the genealogy department have the same job description as senior librarians throughout the system. So their duties are not specific to what they actually do in the genealogy center. So this change is just a change in title to specify that they work in the genealogy center, no change in pay grade, just in title and duties. On the staffing table is also, we have 2 part-time makerspace guides, and we are looking to move one into a full-time position as we increase our makerspace opportunities. This year, we have a senior acquisitions assistant position, and we are looking to change that title only, so no change in pay grade, just change in duty. That position, the predecessor had been here for about 35 years. So we are adjusting that role to what we need in that department. So technical services assistant, no change in pay grade, just duties and title. We are also looking to add 2 full-time circulation specialists. We have circulation specialists at many of our branches right now. We're looking to add 1 full-time one to our Waynedale branch and 1 full-time to our Grable branch. Now that we have the dual manager model at 4 of our locations, we are looking to add a full-time librarian to our Tecumseh branch so that the outreach that right now the manager is doing will be taken off of her plate, so she could manage 2 branches. We have currently a program and partnership specialist with a youth focus, which is a mouthful. We're just looking to change the title of that one to Youth Services Coordinator, no change in pay grade or duties, just designating that they report under Youth Services instead of under the Director of Community Partnerships and Programs. There are 2 title changes, just title change only. Branch Services Manager, that employee used to oversee all the branch managers. She still does. But now that we're not refilling the main manager role, she is also overseeing the adult services and information services here at Maine. And her job title and duties didn't designate any oversight of the main branch. So changing that to Public Services Manager to account for those 2 public service departments here at Maine. And then changing the Chief of Public Services Operations to Chief Operating Officer to better reflect those duties overseeing IT, all pub services, and circulation. So a lot of those changes were talked about last month, but I wanted to just highlight that that's all in that staffing table in your packet.
Any questions? Comments? No? Can we have a motion then to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Jim.
Second.
Second, Kent, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Okay. Let's get to vacation limits, bereavement, and all of that.
We have 3 policy changes we are proposing for 2024. The first one being, I'll start with the vacation cap. Changing the vacation cap for full-time staff members who are in pay grades below P2, so all of the A pay grades and P1. Currently, they are hired in at 2 weeks of vacation. After 7 years, they go up to 3 weeks. After 14 years, they go up to 4. And after 15 years, I think I was saying weeks, 7 years, they go up to 3 weeks. After 14 years, they go to 4 weeks of vacation. And after 29 years, they go up to 5. So we are asking for that to be adjusted to reflect what the P2, the professional level pay grades look like, which would be still hired in at 2 weeks of vacation. After 5 years, they would move up to 3 weeks. After 10 years, they would move to 4, and after 15, they would move to 5 weeks.
How does that compare with other not-for-profits or governmental agencies?
To be honest, I haven't looked at the vacation accruals of the city or the county. I know that a lot of people are not staying at organizations for 29 years. So I mean, we're very fortunate we have a lot of staff who've been here for a while. But to keep them here, I think moving those caps down, that was one thing that was mentioned several times in our benefit survey to staff back in August.
Sharon?
Yeah, I I know you've presented it, I would be in favor of doing something a little more aggressive, because 5 years for another few times off is a long time to wait. For our agency, we start, in our non-for-profit, we start 3 weeks up front loaded, and then after your first 2 years, you earn another couple of days that add on. And then we max out and kind of just ride the same. But, yeah, I'm in favor of what you're presenting, and actually would be in favor of supporting something a little bit more aggressive. But if that's the presentation, then I definitely.
Are you saying instead of from the 5th anniversary, like from 3rd or something along that?
It's a long,
Or-
2 weeks is not a whole lot of time already, when you think about taking time off. 2 weeks is not a lot of time, especially when you're in stressful jobs, dealing with the public, and then to wait 5 years before you get an additional time off. That's, it's a long gap. Most companies in the for-profit start you out at 3 to 4 weeks, and then after a short period of time, you quickly get another week, max out at like 6. But,
when we talked about this in the Finance and Personnel Committee, I was a little surprised at the accrual rate as well. I'd be supportive of what you're suggesting.
I like the way you think.
Do you have firm editorials you want to make to that, or firm suggestions? Because I would be supportive of that as well.
I would love to see if we started out with 3 weeks, and then after 2 to 3 years, we do a couple additional days. And by the time we're at 5 weeks, it would be nice that people were at 4 weeks vacation, and then we can just ride it out from there, or either figure out what makes sense in terms of accumulation from that point. But it takes a long time. 5 years is a long time to get beyond, to gain another week of vacation time. And if you think about it, if you have kids that are in school, or if you just want to take a vacation with your family, 2 weeks away from stressful job that's not a lot.
And the professional level position, so P2 and higher, start out at 4 weeks. So that would be a little bit closer to them, which is good.
And
Yeah. I'd motion for 3 weeks to start out, and then move the grid accordingly.
Okay.
Can we have a second to that?
That wasn't really what I was
What do you
intending,
think?
but
Go ahead.
I'm okay with it. I'm just trying to think of, comparisons, but nothing really coming to mind, so.
I'm open.
Now, we have to adopt this before the beginning of the calendar year, correct?
We want it to be effective in January, yes.
All right.
So just to be clear, it would, from a vacation accrual date from the start, basically, you get 3 weeks, and then you're going 5th anniversary, 4 weeks? Is that what you're suggesting?
I could ride with that.
Okay.
Well, you didn't second the motion.
Well, I was trying to clarify it a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
would second
Well-
that.
Well, if we don't have, Sharon's motion fails, now we have a new fails for lack of a second. So express what the new proposal is?
Absolutely. I would submit for your consideration that we grant 3 weeks vacation time, and at year 5, then we move it to 4 weeks vacation time.
And do we have a second to that?
Second.
Is there discussion? Marty?
Yes, well, first off, I think we have to fill in then 10th and 15th or what we're doing there. So I don't think we can just, right now, that would basically take them to 4 at 5th and then 10th, right, and then either no changes or 15th to go up to 5. And I guess kind of my comment is, I'd like, Lorraine, you came up with a proposal, and I assume, can you tell us what your input was, how you came up with these times, and what basically led to these particular dates and times
Yeah.
that you're proposing to us?
So we met with Dave, too, to talk about, from the financial standpoint, what that would look like. And we had costs broken out if we had the proposal as is for next year, which is not terrible. I think if we kept it the way it was proposed, it was $59,000 to change that for those staff that were in between. But honestly, we didn't know what would be accepted, so we were trying not to be, 29 years is a long time. I mean, it was mentioned since the day I got here that I can't believe I have to be here for 29 years to get up to 5 weeks. So that was on our radar. We just didn't want to be too aggressive and not have it pass either. So this felt like it was more in line with what our professional level positions were that start out at 4 weeks. And then after 10 years, they go up to 5 weeks. So that way it would be reaching up closer to the same amount of time off as the professional level positions.
I guess my perception is I'm not hearing anybody saying that this current proposal wouldn't be workable, and I think given the job climate and what people expect, I certainly think what you proposed was eminently reasonable, and I really don't have a problem with what Sharon's proposing. I'm just not sure we've had the groundwork to do that yet, just how much it costs. But if we have, an idea of what yours would do incrementally, it's not going to be a huge amount.
And we were looking
to
at,
do that. But then I do think, Sharon, we got to say, give us the full, what gets us to 5 weeks?
well, we were looking at our whole package too. So staff right now would start out at 2 weeks of vacation, 2 weeks of sick leave, plus the 2 personal days a year and the floating holidays. So we were looking at the package as a whole too. But I'm always in favor of giving our staff more because they deserve it, so.
I would offer kind of a friendly amendment, is that from the 10th anniversary, it's 5 weeks, and then it's just capped at 5 weeks.
I like that.
Does anyone want to second the friendly amendment?
I'll second the friendly amendment.
I think Sharon has to accept it, right? Isn't that the way it works, or?
Accept it.
Yeah, I think that's,
There's a book on this, I think.
Where
which
is
I do
it?
not have memorized, but I think that's what it works.
If only we could find it in the library.
So since, yes, David.
Lorraine, since this is dealing with the, A1 through P1, do we need to also make any adjustments on the P2 through M4 if we're going to go with the 3, 4, 5 and those dates?
Yes, so right now, the P2 and then higher start out at 4 weeks, and after their 14th anniversary, they go up to 5 weeks. So if we were adjusting the non-professional level positions to cap at 5 weeks after 10 years, then I would suggest the professionals also 5 weeks after 10 years instead of 14.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
Dave,
So
you're our
is it
finance.
Is it the option to do all this on the fly, or can we have it written up for the next board meeting and make anything retroactive?
I can write it up, but if it needs to be started in January, we would need it approved before January. And I'm looking at Dave because
Yeah,
he
your
does
accruals are
payroll.
going to start, and that would get messy trying to split a
Halfway.
period, yeah.
Okay.
It would be best to have it start in the first year just from the payroll accruals.
So what,
I guess-
with all the friendly amendments and everything else, what do we have before us
Yeah.
now?
Thank you for that.
So I have for staff in pay grades P1 and below, from higher date, they start out at 3 weeks of vacation. After 3 years, they move to 4 weeks of vacation. And after 10 years, they move to 5 years, and they cap at 5 years of vacation. And also the P2 and higher positions on their 10th anniversary cap at 5 weeks.
And they're starting out at.
They start out at
weeks.
4.
Right.
Okay, are there questions on that?
Well, I'd be interested in Susan's thoughts in terms of recruitment. I mean, wouldn't you think that this would?
It would help tremendously,
Help.
and for retention as well.
And the fiscal impact?
Fiscal impact really would, when we looked at it, it was 59,000. This, on the P2 to M4, there'd be no real difference because they're already at
Right.
5 weeks. So really, it would be that, probably the third year moving to the 4 weeks. And if that was 59,000 before, I couldn't imagine that being less, anything more than around 70 to 75,000.
All in?
Yeah. Because again, our policy is we don't hire additional staff to cover vacations. We incorporate and make schedule adjustments. So the person's going to be paid 2,080 hours in the year, whether it's vacation or general, regular time.
Okay, is that clear?
That's me.
Crystal.
I think so, yeah.
I just want to make sure Sharon and Paul made the motion in second. Is that your motion is what Marie just said? And second?
Yes. 3 weeks after 3 years, it goes up to 4. Caps out at 5 weeks at 10 years. That's for the beginning pay grades, and then the M letters. Cap
But
at-
B2 and above, yeah.
cap
B2
out
and
at-
above, yeah.
That keep up with it, it caps out there, so yes.
Fourth
Okay,
and-
ready to vote? All those in favor of what was just discussed signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay? Well, vacation abounds.
Thank you so much.
Really?
Thank you.
Okay,
The next policy is our bereavement leave. It was previously called death in the family leave, and every time I had to look in the handbook, I always looked up bereavement, so I would like to change it to bereavement leave. But this was also something that was brought up many times in the staff survey this past summer. Currently, staff who lose an immediate family member, and that was defined, would get 5 consecutive calendar days, whether they worked them or not. So if somebody was not normally scheduled on a Friday and they start their bereavement leave on the Friday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it's the 5 consecutive calendar days. And it was worded that way, and it's really been difficult for our staff who, things don't happen right away. You know, sometimes you'll have the celebration of life several weeks later, or you'll have a day where the emotions might be really high. And so we are asking to still have those 5 days, but not require them to be consecutive. They have to be used within 90 days of the death, but not consecutive. We do ask that the employees still give as much notice to their supervisor if they have to take one of those 5 days. But it also opens up some language to not make it family members by blood. So if you lost a fiance, in our old policy, you wouldn't get any vacation days or any bereavement days because they weren't blood relative. We also included pregnancy loss in this policy, which was not in there before. So the days stay the same, it's the language around considered family members, and gave us some movement if somebody had a very close family member or a life partner that wasn't technically blood or through marriage, that they could have that time off as well.
okay. I see some quizzical looks in people's eyes. Sharon?
So this is a very kind policy that you get 5 days, and I'm not disputing that. I am a little curious about the relational leave portion of it. And I know for most policies that I've seen, we give 3 days for close family relatives, and then some policies give 1 for aunts, uncles. Have we researched or reviewed what that would look like?
Yes.
Maybe perhaps not the full 5 days. I understand a fiance is still a soon to be close relative, but I'm curious about some of the others that are put in there to get, and how often is it? So if I don't want to sound rude or mean, but if I have a close family person that I'm close to that's technically not my family, and I lose them, I get 5 days, and then I lose another individual that I deem as close to but technically not my family, I get another 5 days.
So we still have the 1 day in there for non-immediate family members. And you'll see at the bottom, the language of managers with the assistance of HR to use discretion, so.
For
that-
non-immediate, okay, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I missed that
That's
completely
okay.
then.
Yeah,
Yep.
because I think there will be situations like that. And we reached out, Susan reached out to her executive director listserv to get what other libraries have, and we looked at several of those as examples, and some were a lot more generous, some were not as generous, so felt like we were kind of in between what a lot of libraries are doing. But I think you make a good point that it might be case by case with some people.
And I would add as well, there is also language in the policy that reads employees under discipline for attendance issues or employees within their evaluation period may be required to provide documentation with regard to their bereavement leave, which is another check and balance in there.
And my question was, and I think it's answered now, and I'm reading it a little more carefully, is who has the discretion here? And it's, you're saying managers and you, so basically with your assistance, kind of trying to make
Yeah.
it consistent to the library, I assume is maybe your role, to make sure it's consistent
Yeah.
from branch to branch and from
Yep.
manager to manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I would do a motion to approve.
and may we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Now we move to parental leave.
The last policy that we are bringing forward, we talked about in the October F&P meeting, is introducing a paid parental leave policy for staff. We don't currently have one, so if staff have a child or adopt a child, if they're eligible for FMLA, they can use FMLA, which is unpaid, but they would be required to use all of their sick and vacation and personal time, and then take the rest unpaid if it's outside of if they don't qualify for short-term disability. This would allow for eligible non-birthing employees up to 3 weeks of paid parental leave, which must be taken within those first 12 weeks of the birth or adoption. And then for birth mothers, it would run concurrently with short-term disability, but it would cover up to 6 weeks after childbirth. And if they take the full 12 weeks of FMLA, the remaining 6 weeks, short-term would still kick in up to 70%, which it does now. They would have the option to cover the difference with their own personal leave or save that for when they return to work. Because we know babies are sick a lot in that first year. Because right now, a lot of times they're returning and they have no leave left if they need to take a day. So you'll see that policy in here, and what would include eligible employees is if they've worked at ACPL for at least 12 months, worked the 1250 hours during that leave period, so very similar to FMLA, and have completed and been approved for FMLA or our medical leave. So I looked up, because I know that was asked last time, was how much short-term disability we've had, to see what potentially that might cost. It's hard to know exactly how many people are going to have children in the next couple of years. But we've had, we switched payroll systems in 2021, so I was only able to go back to 2021 without going through all the boxes. But 2021, so in the last 3 years, we've had 21 leaves that are short-term disability, but only 4 were for maternity leave. So the rest were for procedures or surgeries or things like that. So in those 21 leaves, it totaled out to $44,000 that we paid for short-term disability. Right now, if 5% of our staff, which would be about 18 employees, if 5% were to go out on parental leave next year, it would cost approximately $73,000 if we had this paid parental leave policy.
Yes, Sharon.
And this is for both mom and dad, or mom and mom, dad
So
and dad?
mom would get the 6 weeks, dads would get the 3. And dads would have to be used within the 12 weeks, but they don't have to be right after the birth. The mother would have the 6 weeks after the birth, and then potentially 6 more weeks of FMLA if she qualified.
So the birthing mother gets 6 weeks. The male in that situation would get 3.
Correct.
And for adoption, it would be
Adoption
the
would be-
same.
Yes, so the mother would get 6 and the father would get 3.
We have questions, suggestions? Well, can I have a motion to approve the paid parental leave as presented?
I would like to ask an additional question.
Please.
Is there, can you help me understand the thought behind on an adoption? Why the adopting parent, it sounds like mother, I'll go with female, gets the 6 weeks for the adoption process as opposed to the same as the birthing process?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're correct, Sharon. I'm sorry. So the birthing mother, so if you had a natural birth, it would be 6 weeks. If the placement of a child under the age of 18 with the employee for adoption, so you'd be the non-birthing employee, you'd get 3 weeks.
Okay. Second,
That's very good clarification. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the paid parental leave as presented signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Any abstentions?
No, no, I was going to just make a comment, but that's okay.
The floor is yours.
I already said aye, but the only comment is, given what we're doing, we're going to have some more people with time off, for vacation and everything. I just want to make sure we encourage that we still cover and serve the public as best we can, to the extent we're doing this. But I agree with all these positions, so.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lorraine.
Thanks. Thank you.
And now it's your turn, Susan.
Thank you very much. What you have done tonight is going to do so much for our recruiting and retention, so we are very grateful. Thank you. So I have a written report that I will go over, and then I have some news that didn't quite make the written report because it was embargoed at the time that I was writing the written report, and I'm looking right at him. Hi, Kurt. We'll talk about Kurt in a bit. But first off, I would like to introduce our new Youth Services Manager, Jackie Fullwood. Jackie is right there. Jackie has been with us now for about a month, and she came to us from the Dayton Metro Public Library in Ohio, and we are so grateful to have her here with us. She came with me to the Fort Wayne Community School Board meeting earlier this month, but I believe it was actually in November, and got to meet all of the trustees there, and she is just doing an excellent job, and we are just so grateful to have her on the team. So welcome, Jackie. This is a report of a lot of good news. You may have seen in the newspaper that our Follinger Foundation Board of Directors recently approved a $1,065,000 three-year program grant to our foundation, our library foundation, for continuous support of the Spark Summer Learning Program and Team Read. So we were just so incredibly grateful and honored for that vote of confidence in our work and allowing us to be able to continue it. I do want to give thanks to Beth Boatwright because she took the lead on preparing the application paperwork for us. So thank you, Beth, and thank you, Follinger Foundation. Lorraine was just selected to be a part of Greater Fort Wayne, Inc.'s Leadership Fort Wayne class of 2024. So we're very excited about that. And she will now be the second person among senior staff to have participated because Aja, in a previous position, is also an alum as well. So congratulations to Lorraine. And in more awards, the theme of tonight is awards. The Teen Services Librarian Charlotte Hilniger, she has been named an American Library Association Emerging Leader for 2024. She is a part of a class of 50 librarians from the United States and Canada selected to participate in project planning work groups, network with peers, and have an opportunity to serve the profession in a leadership capacity in an early stage of career. And she also, just this month, I believe, completed her master's in library science. And her participation in the Emerging Leader program is sponsored by the Asia Pacific American Librarian Association.
What does that mean?
The Asian Pacific American Library Association
Yeah,
part?
why would she be sponsored by that organization as opposed by us, or? how's
Well, we are also helping sponsor as well, but she is a part of that group. So she was given partial sponsorship to participate in this program, which means that they are contributing to the finances involved in sending her.
that? I see.
The library was selected to participate in the Institute of Museum and Library Service funded program called Nourishing Minds. And the Nourishing Minds initiative focuses on developing the capacity of libraries in addressing the teen mental health crisis in the United States. And Charlotte, who you heard about before, along with Aisha Hallman from our Youth Services Department, will be leading this effort. So we're excited to see what that brings to us because we know that is an important issue. You may have seen in the newspaper that last week we launched a brand new archival portal in our digital community album celebrating the work of United Hispanic Americans Incorporated, which is a local organization that was dedicated to empowering Hispanic children and adults to excel in the community. Rosa Guerra, who was the retired director and a founding member of the organization, approached Kurt with many photos, articles, and other physical documents about the group's many decades of work in the community, and Kurt and his team took several months to have those scanned and write the metadata and make them accessible to the world. And we held a digital ribbon cutting, and we don't think we've ever done that before, but we did, and it worked really well. Last week, where Miss Guerra, she hit the button to make that archive go live. And it's the first Hispanic or Latino collection that we have added to our community album, and we hope to get many more. So if anyone's listening or watching out there and has a collection they'd like to talk to us about, get in contact with us. We would love to see it. We have added a new digital resource to our collection. It is called LOTE for Kids, and that LOTE stands for Languages Other Than English, and it's a database of digital picture books in different world languages with English translations, and the platform currently has over 3,000 titles in over 65 languages, including Burmese, which is very, very important to us. Our Winter Spark program, we have Summer Spark and we have Winter Spark, all seasons. Our program that celebrates science, play, arts, reading, and knowledge begins December 26th, and it's available for all ages, and you can earn a prize, a book, just by signing up. And finally, you don't see this in the written report because I was still sworn to secrecy at the time, but you may have seen that Kurt Witcher was named a 2024 I Love My Librarian honoree. Kurt was one of 10 librarians in the country who received it, and there were approximately 1,400 nominees.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I hope Kurt forgives me because I have to tell a little of the backstory because I think it's entertaining. So I had co-conspirators in this little project of mine. I approached Allison and Aaron from Kurt's management team about this, and I said, do you think I would make Kurt mad if we nominated him for this? And I admit I said more colorful language than that, but for the board meeting, I'm going to say, would I make Kurt mad? And then I said, I am willing to be the target of his annoyance if he indeed is annoyed, because I felt like I knew in my bones he would win. I knew it. If he wasn't going to win, I don't know who would win. We had a nearly 15-page nomination because so many people wanted to share what Kurt and the Genealogy Center meant to them. Even people who weren't specifically asked to write a letter found out about it and said, I wasn't asked, but I want you to take my letter, which absolutely, we did. And I was okay taking the risk that Kurt might be annoyed with me if he won, because this is about Kurt, and it's more than just about Kurt. Because it's about what special collections and genealogy can and should mean to a 21st century library, and how relevant it is, and how important it is. And this award shines a light on Kurt, as it should, and his department and the library, and it also shines a light on the field of genealogy and special collections. This is what makes a library unique and relevant. And if this award and the attention it's getting can inspire other libraries around the country, no matter their size, to start thinking about their own stories they can collect and preserve and share, then I think Kurt would agree it was well worth any sort of annoyance you might have with me. The other funny part of the story, I think it's funny, I think Kurt gets a chuckle of it at as well. So as you know, these awards, you apply several weeks in advance, right? He gets the call that he's won the award when the two of us are in Nashville, Tennessee. We had taken a 6 a.m. flight that day out of Fort Wayne to Nashville, and we were getting ready to spend an entire weekend there to do outreach at a social studies conference for the Roland Center and the Lincoln Collection. So we were about to spend a lot of hours together. And if he was going to be angry at me, this was going to be a very awkward weekend because we were literally together morning to night. So we had flown to Nashville, we had gone to the convention center, we had set up our booth to get ready for the next day, we had gone back to the hotel, we were going to have dinner that night, we were each on our laptops in our room, catching up on all the work that happened while we were gone. And then I see a ping from Kurt on my laptop. Susan, I got this call about this award. Do you know anything about it? Yes, I do. So I had to fess up, and he was very gracious about it, and I'm probably already really embarrassing him, so I'll stop, but I will just say, well-deserved, and thank you for not being too annoyed with us, because you deserve this and everything else. Thank you so much.
That's it?
That's it.
Well, let's segue then to employee retirements for 2023. Kurt, you're not going to retire.
Find my name on the list.
You look for it, though.
Do we have the names?
We do. They are in your packet right here. Lorraine can read them, or you can read them, whatever you would like. Or
Oh, Lorraine? I didn't see that.
That's okay.
All right, this past year, we've had Sue Pfeiffer, who mentioned earlier, was here for 35 years in our Technical Services Department. Kay Spears, who was here for 23 years in our Genealogy Department. Larry Banks, who was here for 20 years in Access Fort Wayne. Kathy Bird, who was here 17 years from our Genealogy Department. Cynthia Tush, 15 years in genealogy. Kurt's had some change this year. And Randy Grepke, who was here for 15 years in our maintenance as a courier. So thank all of them for their years of service.
Yes, thank you.
Very good stuff.
Okay, is there any new business that should come before this body?
I just had a couple of comments, Ben,
Sure.
if I could. I got one as a patron and then one as a board member. For those who don't know, I'm actually working on my master's in philanthropic studies, about halfway through. And this last semester, I had to write a term paper on philanthropy and American history together and find a period of time and showcase something. So I chose to showcase the work of the big three service organizations, Rotary, Lions Club, and Kiwanis. And of course, for any term paper, you need resources. And I chose to do the early 20th century as my time period. And so, of course, I come in and talk to a librarian who does some research, and they pulled up a book called Rotary and the Brethren that was in storage, and it was written in 1935. And it was the perfect source for what I needed to showcase during my different time periods and things. And so, anecdotally, I can say we still have great books in our storage from that standpoint, and it was well used, and I just wanted to thank everybody for their help in me getting I got 19 out of 20 on my paper, so it was a good time.
You
Probably-
could have done better.
I could have, but I was pretty happy with that. So. The second part of my comments is a little bittersweet. I was contacted last week by the commissioners, and I am not being reappointed to the Library Board of Trustees. Tomorrow, during their legislative session, they are appointing a new representative to come on the board. I've had conversations with them on that end about it. While I'm disappointed, I've been happy to serve on the board for 8 years, and thank all of you for your camaraderie and relationship. I know there's a lot to be done, and I've had some board members ask me to continue maybe helping in other capacities, but I'll give some thought to lots of things as we kind of move forward here on that end. But I'll also say to the patrons of Allen County, we're going to need your help as a library. And I want to make sure that you hear, I guess, my message that when this board asks for your help this next year, as it relates to some of our capital work and the things that are going on to make sure our elected officials understand the importance that this institution and community service or community organization is to our community, how important it is to our community, that you rise to the occasion and make sure that our voices are heard and that we get the public resources that are needed to make sure the system continues to meet the growth of Allen County and also the demands of what is tasked every day by this organization. Because there's a lot of organizations that come and go in our county, but the library has remained strong for a lot of years. And so I want to make sure that it continues to get its resources. So I just encourage patrons to have a voice, especially whenever the board asks for it. But even in the meantime, you can feel free to voice your opinion of how strong the library is and how we want it to remain a great resource in our community. So
We shall miss you.
thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Ken.
Thank you for your service.
Are there any other items we wish to bring before the board? If not, we have public comment. Dr. Brolin? Public comment?
Is that me?
Yeah.
I'm a little hard of hearing, and I'm put in the back here with no microphone, so I can't hear you very well. Pardon?
There's,
Well, I know, but I need to have this here.
okay,
We can bring one to you.
The reason I wanted to come down is because I'm a little discouraged, because I notice that when people come into this country, they sometimes don't speak English well. They don't know how to run computers. In fact, some of us older people aren't very good at it. And I'm a little surprised at why there couldn't be a better improvement in the library itself here, especially in the downtown building. You have a good location, you got parking, you got a room, you got the computers and everything, but you don't have any dedicated person that claims they know how to do it. One person said, we're a librarian, not a computer person. We don't know that much about it. But I thought it was interesting, and I appreciate her being here, but Susan Baer mentions in the paper, it says, come down and research and so on and play and take a computer class. But where is the computer class? I haven't found it. And the cost can't be the factor, because I notice it's interesting that here's a woman in California who thought there should be some type of better computer classes for the public. And she, within this year she started, has already had $22 million donated to help start it out, and said it's a very important subject. And she's, it says it's 28, and her process is called Care Learning. Also, Amazon is willing to help you get a computer course started. They're going to have a website, but just having a website doesn't do the job. You have to have some instruction with it. What are the three things that help teach people? There's the 3 L's. You've all heard this before. That's a lecture, a listen, and learn. And if you don't have all 3, you're not going to be a good teacher. That's one of the troubles with education today, is you have educators who don't know how to teach. So, but I collected some information. I noticed here at the library, you have so-called computer courses. But actually, of the 3, Maine, DuPont, Aboit, Little Turtle, Hessen, Castle, and Aboit, the Maine one and Little Turtle have a total of about 1 hour a month. It's not really a lecture. They come and maybe help you if you have a question, but it really isn't education. And people who claim it is, obviously don't know about education. It lists DuPont, and also Aboit. Aboit doesn't have a program. Hessen, Castle, I don't know about it. Aboit is listed twice. So of the 18 periods that are listed, there really isn't one in there, but at the most it'll be Maine and Little Turtle. Okay, now I notice it's interesting, and this may not be interesting to you, but it's amazing how computer education is sold. Here's a place that sells computer classes. And yet, when you get done with it, what it is an insurance agency that tells you how to buy an insurance company, into an insurance company. Here's a place called Stratford, who gives a course, but upon investigation with it by somebody, including your own library, apparently it's kind of a sham too, and they have a lot of people who say they don't get what they get from it. Here's a place in Indianapolis that was willing to come to Fort Wayne and open an office, but they couldn't find anybody that was interested, including, I understand, the library here. Here's another one, Work One, which gets federal and state money, and they have, total program consists of basically one or 1.5 days a month, which is very difficult to get much from it. And so I could go on, and I don't know whether you're really interested or not. There are some people give out introduction to computers, but again, it's very limited, and it's not very debating. And what I don't understand is you have the building with parking, you got a room, and you got equipment. All you need is someone willing to teach, and if you don't have the people willing or interested in doing it, for God's sakes, why don't you go to other schools that are willing to do it? It does make sense to me. Fort Wayne Urban League supposedly has a little program, but it isn't really at all. Work One, they get paid a lot of money to have one. Again, they don't. Southwest Down School doesn't have one. It's interesting also, I noticed that people complain about the cost of computers, and yet computers for Ivy Tech were either given or sold away for nothing to Work One and other places because no one wanted to take them, including the library apparently. Indiana University, Purdue, and Ivy Tech are not interested anymore. Ansys Career Center quit doing. There's a place called iTrain of Northern Indiana, but they don't have anybody there full-time. And Adult Life Training, and they're not even sure they're going to have anything next year. There's enough people that need the training, and it doesn't cost anything. I don't understand this. Everybody complains about the cost of computers, and yet I live in southwest Allen County, and it was last year, they had several hundred, 300-400 they wanted to get rid of, and they ended up, they wouldn't offer them to people in Fort Wayne or the taxpayers in Allen County, but they sold them for like $200 a piece to some outfit. Again, why wouldn't they offer them to the library or anybody else in town that wanted them? I'd love to talk to somebody if they're seriously interested in trying to improve your library. I think it's something that should be done. I don't understand why it isn't done, or nobody seems interested.
Would Beth?
I also noticed here an old book, 20 years old, on computer science. Somebody could start a course using something like that. And it isn't a lack of money. I notice here, there's a foundation, AWS, who just gave out over $1 million. And there's a place here who got equipment for the blind people, had trouble seeing it. I offered years ago to get it for them wholesale, but they didn't want to do that. Instead, they took money and paid retail to somebody here in town. So I don't understand the whole thing, because maybe I'm just too damn stupid. But that's all I got to say. I would hope that somebody will come to me with a sincere interest in trying to improve people to learn the language and learn computers and other things. That would be very helpful. You have 31 or 40 pages in here, and all that's amounted to with computers is this, of which half of them don't even exist. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate that. Are there any comments from people viewing the meeting?
Rebecca Wolf says Kurt is a treasure.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Nay. Thank you very much. We have an executive session that will follow.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everybody.